These are the 7 levels of Fallout creatures. Level 1, the mutations. Radiation doesn't make you stronger, it kills you. Slowly, painfully, usually with cancer. So why is the wasteland full of giant bugs instead of corpses? The answer is survival bias. You're not seeing what radiation created. You're seeing what radiation couldn't kill. Radroaches weren't mutated into existence. Cockroaches were already radiation resistant before the bombs fell. They could survive doses that would liquefy human organs. The Great War didn't create them, it just removed the competition. Same with bloatflies. Houseflies were always prolific breeders. Now they're the size of footballs and shoot larvae at you, but the basic survival strategy hasn't changed. Breed fast, die cheap, repeat. Two-headed mutations are weirder. Brahmin, the wasteland's two-headed cattle, show up everywhere, and nobody really questions why radiation would give something 2 heads instead of, say, tumors. Radstags have the same mutation. It's almost like radiation follows rules that don't make biological sense. But here's what's actually interesting about Level 1 creatures. The wasteland's most successful mutation isn't a predator, it's livestock. Brahmin pull carts produce milk, provide meat. They're the backbone of every caravan route in the wasteland. The apocalypse didn't create monsters, it created cows. So if radiation just makes things bigger and gives them extra heads, why do some wasteland creatures look like they were designed? Like something put them together on purpose. Not everything in the wasteland crawled out of the blast zone. Some of it crawled out of the ocean. Level 2, the accidents. Mirelurks shouldn't exist, not because they're weird, because their DNA makes no sense. An Enclave scientist ran genetic tests on mirelurk samples and found something impossible, markers from 2 completely unrelated species, Atlantic horseshoe crab and Atlantic blue crab. Those aren't even in the same biological class. That's not how mutations work. That's not how anything works. Unless it wasn't a mutation. Here's the proof mirelurks look different in every region. In the capital wasteland around DC, they're bipedal and crab-like. In the Commonwealth around Boston, they're rounder, more like lobsters. The Potomac River had different corporate polluters than Boston Harbor. Different chemicals, different mutations. Nahant Oceanological Society documented a 14% size increase in local crab populations before the Great War. They tried to warn people. The media ran a story about how great shellfish season was going to be. The apocalypse didn't create mirelurks. Poseidon Energy created mirelurks. General Atomics created mirelurks. The bombs just finished what the corporations started. Guai got its name from the survivors of Chinese internment camps. In Mandarin, it means demon, which tells you what those survivors saw when they looked at a mutated black bear the size of a car charging at them through the ruins. Guai will attack deathclaws without fear. They can be domesticated, but most wastelanders never get that far into the relationship. Radscorpions are the wasteland's most reliable enemy. Every Fallout game, every region, giant scorpions burrowing up from underground to ruin your day. They're what radiation does to something that was already venomous and armored. More of the same, just bigger. But here's the thing, radscorpions, mirelurks, guai, they're all still just animals. Dangerous, territorial, aggressive. But animals, they're not evil, they're not cruel, they're just hungry. Animals don't choose to become monsters, but what happens when humans do? Level 3, the victims. Ghouls aren't monsters, they're people, or they used to be. Cooper Howard was a Hollywood actor, a war hero, a husband, a father. He did commercials for Vault-Tec. He believed in the American dream. Now he's over 200 years old, his skin is peeling off his skull, and he has to inject himself with radaway every few hours or he'll lose his mind forever. That's not mutation, that's a timer. Ghoulification happens when a human absorbs enough radiation to trigger a specific cellular change. Nobody fully understands why some people become ghouls and others just die. The process can be instant, standing near ground zero when the bombs fell, or gradual, building up over years of wasteland exposure. Either way, the result is the same. Extended lifespan, immunity to radiation, and a body that looks like it's been rotting for decades even though it's technically still alive. The trade-off is feralization. Every ghoul knows it's coming. The brain degenerates over time. Higher functions disappear. Memories fade. Eventually, there's nothing left but hunger and rage. A feral ghoul has no body heat, no personality, no self. It's sustained entirely by the radiation it absorbs, essentially dead but still moving. Some ghouls go feral within days. Trauma can accelerate the process. Watching everyone you know die tends to damage the psyche. Others last for centuries. There's no way to predict it, no way to prevent it. Just a clock you can't see, counting down to the day you forget who you are. A TV series revealed something the games only hinted at. Radaway slows the process. Cooper uses an inhaler constantly, fighting to stay lucid. Every dose buys him more time. But it's not a cure. There is no cure, just borrowed hours. Glowing ones are what happens when a ghoul absorbs so much radiation they become bioluminescent. Their skeletons are visible through their skin like walking x-rays. Most of them went feral centuries ago. But a few like Jason Bright in New Vegas, who led a cult of ghouls seeking a rocket ship to paradise, or Oswald the Outrageous in Nuka World, a stage magician who genuinely believes his radiation powers are magic, managed to hold on, still thinking, still suffering, still waiting for the day the light behind their eyes finally goes out. Ghouls aren't limited to humans. Caravan guards in the Commonwealth whisper about something called Alpeg, a ghoul whale, a leviathan swimming somewhere in the Atlantic irradiated beyond recognition. Nobody who's seen it clearly has lived to give a detailed report. but the stories keep coming. Whatever radiation does to a human body, imagine what it does to something that was already the size of a building. Ghouls lost their humanity by accident, but what if someone took it from them? Level 4, the failures. Super mutants aren't random, they're manufactured. Forced evolutionary virus, FEV, was developed before the Great War by Vault-Tec as part of a super soldier program. It rewrites human DNA completely, causing massive physical changes, increased size, strength, resilience, and aggression. The military wanted unstoppable infantry. What they got was unstoppable infantry that couldn't follow orders. After the bombs fell, a man named Richard Gray stumbled into the ruins of Mariposa military base and fell into a vat of FEV. Over months, the virus transformed him into something that wasn't human anymore, a massive blob of flesh fused with the base's computer systems, capable of psychic communication, calling himself the Master. Master had a vision. Humanity was destroying itself. Tribalism, war, greed, the same flaws that ended the world would end any attempt to rebuild it. His solution was elegant in its horror: force everyone to evolve into the same species. No more races, no more nations, no more differences to fight over. Unity through mutation. He spent decades perfecting the process. First-generation super mutants retained their intelligence. Characters like Marcus and Lily Bowen prove that FEV doesn't have to destroy the mind. The Master discovered that subjects with minimal radiation exposure converted better. Vault dwellers, sealed away from the Wasteland's background radiation, were ideal. Then the Vault dweller told him the truth. Super mutants are sterile, every single one. The Master's perfect army couldn't reproduce. His grand unified future was a single generation of monsters followed by extinction. Master, this psychic flesh computer that had consumed hundreds of people, built an army, and nearly conquered California, couldn't handle it. He destroyed himself and his entire base rather than face what he'd created. But here's the disturbing part. Other people kept making super mutants. Vault-Tec ran their own FEV experiments in Vault 87, creating the dumber, more aggressive East Coast variant. These super mutants grow continuously throughout their lives, eventually becoming behemoths, walking buildings of muscle and rage. They kidnap humans to create more of themselves because they can't breed naturally. Institute acquired FEV samples and experimented on kidnapped Commonwealth citizens as part of their synth research program. When subjects failed to produce useful data, they were released into the wasteland. The Institute's lead FEV scientist, Dr. Virgil, eventually infected himself with the virus just to escape what he was doing. 3 different factions, 200 years of history, the same mistake repeated over and over. Everyone who discovers FEV eventually thinks, I can do better. They're all wronged. Super mutants were supposed to be soldiers, but what happens when scientists just want to see what they can create? Level 5, the escapees. Big MT is a pre-war research facility in the Mojave Desert where scientists asked, can we, instead of should we, for 200 years straight. Place is run by the Think Tank, a group of researchers who removed their own brains and put them in floating robot jars to survive the apocalypse. They're completely insane. They've been experimenting in isolation since the bombs fell, creating horrors and then forgetting they created them. Dr. Boris made the cazadors. Cazadors are mutated tarantula hawk wasps, insects thaw. He already had one of the most painful stings in nature before Boris started splicing their DNA. He claims they were designed to be docile, sterile, and contained. He is wrong about all 3 things. Cazadors escaped Big MT decades ago. They've spread across the Mojave Wasteland and into Zion Canyon. They form swarms, build nests, reproduce faster than anyone can exterminate them. The Spanish word cazador means hunter. The Wastelanders who named them knew exactly what they were dealing with. Players who have survived the Mojave know the truth. You can kill a deathclaw. Cazadors travel in swarms that poison you, cripple your limbs, and chase you until your heart stops. More player characters have died to cazadors than to any other creature in New Vegas. Night Stalkers are another Big MT creation. Coyote DNA spliced with rattlesnake. Fast as a dog, venomous as a serpent, hunting in packs at night. They escape too. Everything escapes Big MT eventually. And then there's the Gulpers. In the games, Gulpers are mutated hellbender salamanders found around Far Harbor. Dangerous, but straightforward. Giant amphibians that never stop growing. In the TV series, Gulpers are something else entirely. Vault 4 scientists were trying to create radiation-resistant humans. Their method was hybridization, combining human DNA with species that could survive high radiation exposure. The experiments required hosts, human hosts. Women were impregnated with genetically engineered embryos and gave birth to the results. TV series Gulper has a mouth lined with human fingers instead of teeth. Its eyes are human. Its front limbs end in hands that are almost recognizable. Overseer Benjamin casually mentions that one of the Gulpers was his great-uncle Peter. These creatures didn't escape a lab. They escaped a nightmare. And somewhere in Vault 4's records, there's a video of a woman giving birth to a school of baby Gulpers that immediately turned and consumed her. The line between creature and victim disappears when you realize someone's grandmother might be a monster now. Some experiments escaped the lab. Others were too horrible to keep alive. Level 6, the abominations. The Master didn't just make super mutants. He made whatever he wanted. Take a human, a dog, a cat, maybe something else, the records aren't clear. Throw them all into the same vat of FEV at the same time. Wait. What comes out is a centaur. Centaurs have too many legs, too many heads, and no idea what they are. The virus doesn't blend the subjects cleanly, it just combines them. The results are different every time. Some centaurs have human torsos with 6 limbs arranged in no particular pattern. Some have multiple heads. The 2-headed variants are the worst. 1 head human, 1 head canine. They can be observed on separate necks, moving independently. Sometimes the dog head tries to eat the human one. They're at war with themselves. Multiple consciousnesses or fragments of consciousness, trapped in the same mutated body, unable to separate, unable to communicate, unable to die. Master used centaurs as watchdogs for his super mutant army. They're drawn to radiation, can survive in environments that would kill almost anything else, and they're aggressive toward anything that isn't a mutant. Perfect perimeter security for someone who sees humans as raw material. Floaters were another master creation, FEV applied to flatworms, producing blobby masses of flesh that somehow became mobile. They traveled alongside centaurs in the original games, haven't been seen since. Maybe they died out. Maybe they're still floating through some forgotten corner of the wasteland, waiting. Snallagasters of Appalachia are FEV creatures too, named after a West Virginia cryptid legend. Tongue attacks, toxic spit, the same basic horror as centaurs but shaped differently. The specific origin is unclear, could be Vault-Tec, could be Enclave, could be West-Tech's Appalachian facility. Does it matter? Someone made them. Someone always makes them. These aren't failures, they're prototypes. The master was testing what was possible before he settled on super mutants as his army. Centaurs proved you could combine species. Floaters proved you could reshape basic organisms. Every horror was a proof of concept. And the most disturbing part, when Vault-Tec found the master's research, someone in Vault 87 looked at centaurs and thought, we should make some of those too. The master experimented because he thought he was helping. But what about the people who made monsters as weapons? Level 7, the weapons. Everything else in the wasteland is an accident, a mistake, an experiment gone wrong. Deathclaws worked exactly as intended. Well, almost as intended. US government created Deathclaws before the Great War as biological weapons. The base species was Jackson's chameleon, chosen specifically for its stealth capabilities. Chameleons change color, move silently, strike before prey. Knows they're there. The military wanted invisible assassins they could drop behind enemy lines in China. Let them do their work. Never send another American soldier home in a body bag. What they got was a 10-foot-tall murder machine that can't stop growing and screams loud enough to echo across a canyon. Chameleon DNA is still in there. Some Deathclaw variants can turn nearly invisible. The chameleon Deathclaws of the Commonwealth prove the stealth genes survived, but the growth mutations overwhelmed everything else. The military wanted ninjas. They made Godzilla. For decades after the war, Wastelanders thought Deathclaws were myths. Ghost stories traders told each other around campfires. Tales of entire caravans disappearing. Nothing left but claw marks and blood. Then the nests started appearing, and the myths became routine survival information. Deathclaws are pack hunters. 10 feet tall, 800 pounds of muscle. Claws that can tear through power armor like paper. They establish territories, lay eggs, protect their young. Alpha males lead, matriarchs control breeding. They're not mindless, they're organized. Master found them after the war and enhanced them further with FEV, made them bigger, faster, smarter, but still not smart enough to control. Then the Enclave had an idea. In 2235, Enclave scientists captured Deathclaws and exposed them to a modified FEV strain designed to boost intelligence. They wanted soldiers who could follow complex orders, operate equipment, maybe even speak. Controllable weapons with the killing power of Deathclaws and the obedience of trained soldiers. It worked. Intelligent Deathclaws could think, they could talk, they could reason, debate, philosophize. A pack led by a Deathclaw named Gruthar took over the abandoned Vault 13 and established a peaceful community. They protected human refugees. Gruthar's son Goris became a scholar, wearing a hooded robe so he could travel among humans and study their culture. They were everything the Enclave wanted, except for one thing: they asked questions. Intelligent Deathclaws questioned why they existed. They questioned the Enclave's right to create them. They questioned whether serving their creators was morally acceptable. They developed consciences. So the Enclave sent Frank Horrigan, a cybernetically enhanced super soldier in power armor, to massacre the entire Vault 13 colony. Every intelligent Deathclaw, every human under their protection. Gruthar, the scholars, the children. Only Goris survived, because he was traveling with the Chosen One when it happened. He felt his entire family die through the psychic link his kind shared. By the time he returned, there was nothing left to save. Games designer John Daly had plans for intelligent Deathclaws to emigrate from the Vault and build their own civilization. They were going to modify power armor to fit their bodies and raid the Enclave for FEV samples to enhance future generations. The developers killed them off behind his back, cut to a massacre, and moved on. US government wanted silent killers. They got screaming monsters. The Enclave wanted obedient soldiers. They got philosophers. Every attempt to control Deathclaws has failed, not because they're too stupid, but because they're too alive. That's not a monster story. That's a humanity story. So why would anyone build the things that are trying to kill us? Because they were trying to kill someone else. Deathclaws were weapons aimed at China. Super mutants were supposed to be super soldiers. Cazadors were pest control experiments that escaped. Centaurs were prototypes for biological recombination. Gulpers were radiation resistance tests using human subjects. None of these creatures were built for the wasteland. They were built for the world before. The bombs didn't create the monsters. The bombs just unlocked the cages. 200 years later, nothing has changed. The Institute kept making super mutants. Big MT kept making cazadors. The Enclave made intelligent deathclaws and then murdered them for being too intelligent. Every faction that gets powerful enough to do science eventually asks the same question. What if we could build something deadlier than the last guys? War never ended. The weapons factory never closed. Humanity keeps manufacturing its own predators, then acts surprised when they escape and start hunting. That's not survival, that's repetition. War never changes because the people making the weapons never change. If you enjoyed this video and want to see the 7 levels of Fallout factions, click the video on the screen.